Hey, good morning, Tigers. It's good to see you again. We're going to continue today to talk about our questioning strategy, and I'm using the book The One and Only Ivan by Katherine Applegate to model for you. So, yesterday we talked about asking questions before we read, and we used the TAP method for title, author, and picture. We'd ask a question about each of those things. Today, we're going to look at these same questions a little bit closer to check our understanding so far. So, yesterday I asked these questions before I read, and then I took about 20 minutes to read my book. So, the first question I asked was, who is Ivan? And after reading yesterday, I learned that Ivan is a gorilla who lives in a mall. And then the question was, what's so special about him? The answer is, I don't know the answer to that yet. It might be that he lives in a mall, but it could be something else. I'm kind of expecting the author to give me more details about that as we continue to read. I asked a question about the author. I asked, what do I already know about the author's writing or her style of writing? And I can answer that. So I read another book by Katherine Applegate called Crenshaw. And in Crenshaw, it had a very serious topic of homelessness. But the little boy who was struggling with homelessness had an imaginary friend named Crenshaw, who was a cat. And despite a very serious topic, the book was actually pretty funny. The author had a lot of humor and used animals to bring a sense of calm to our main character. So that got me thinking about this book, and it got me wondering if this book was going to have animal characters who were funny. And my answer so far is absolutely. Ivan is hysterical. He is very serious at one point, and then he talks about loving to watch it when people fall and slip and fall on banana peels. So it still has that same feel to it that I'd expect from our author, Katherine Applegate. The last question I asked was about the picture, and I said, why is the elephant so small? And the answer is, I don't know yet. And then, who is the grumpy gorilla? I think it might be Ivan, because they talk about him a lot so far. He's actually telling the story, but I haven't seen an example of him being grumpy yet. So I'm wondering when that part of the book will come to be. So when I'm asking questions before I read, and I read, and then I look back to see what I can answer, I've just checked my understanding. I've gone a little bit deeper in the book than I would have if I were just reading. So good readers ask questions before they read. Good readers also ask questions during their reading. So yesterday when I was reading, I went ahead and I asked some questions too. And I want to talk about those questions with you. The first question I asked was, how did Ivan end up at a mall? Why isn't he in a habitat like I'd expect to see at a zoo? Another question I asked is, why is Ivan's domain made of cement and not natural like the kind I might find at a zoo? I asked, how come Ivan says he is never angry, especially when he looks so grumpy on the front cover? Another question I asked was, what happened to Ivan's sister? It's his twin sister, and her name is Tag. He mentions her, but doesn't say anything about her. And then the last question I asked yesterday during my reading was, how did Bob and Ivan become friends? Doesn't really tell us. You'll notice that my questions all start with how and why, and this one started with a what. These are deeper questions. These are thicker questions that cause me to think just outside of the book and not just inside of my book. I ask how and why questions because the answer causes me to think deeply about what I've read. I'm not going to ask questions that have simple yes or no answers or one word answers because that's not really going to help me check my understanding as I read. I want to avoid those kinds of questions. And I want to stick with good questions like this: how and why and what. If you need a challenge or need some help on that, on your plan for the day, you'll notice that I've also put in a questioning matrix. and you can use the questioning matrix to help you start to think of some questions. You can line up a question word from one side, and at the top and where they meet, you can use both of those words to help you come up with a question if you'd like. So I ask these questions because I am a curious learner. And later on, when I am reading, I might find the answer to these questions. And if I found those answers, I can start to think more deeply about my book again. And when I do that, I'm being metacognitive. We've talked about a lot about that this year. Think about your thinking. This was my thinking, my question. And then when I get it answered, I can think about it again and either change a question, make a new question, or allow that to help me understand what I've read better. Now it's your turn, boys and girls. You can choose the book that you started reading yesterday or another book that you're currently reading. And I'd like you to grab that paper from yesterday that you wrote your before reading questions on. And today, you are going to ask between 4 and 5 really great questions about what you're reading today. Feel free to use that questioning matrix if you like or want a challenge, or you can simply start to think of some good question words like how, why. And then tomorrow, we will talk some more about those kind of good questions and what we should do after we finished reading a book, what kinds of things we can ask then. So grab your notebook or wherever you wrote down your questions yesterday, make a new category for during reading questions, and read for about 20 minutes. And I'd like you to come up with between 4 and 5 really great questions. Have a great day, readers.